World Sports Weekly, I'm your host Natalie Rydström. Wimbledon 2013 is just round the corner. Considered one of the most prestigious Grand Slams, the grass court event has been host to some of the most spectacular men's finals in tennis history. Here now thus to give us an early preview of the action and discuss the betting futures market is SBRForum sportswriter Nila Amerova. Nila, thanks for joining us today.
Hi Natalie, nice to be on your show again.
Now, an early peek at the betting futures reveals that this is expected to be a highly competitive event. Let's start with the price on Novak Djokovic at plus 170 with Pinnacle Sports. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Novak Djokovic is a tempting favorite. I'm a little bit surprised that he is the top favorite, but I guess that's down to his world #1 ranking. He is a former world Wimbledon champion, so one can't say he isn't a good play. And when he's also made the semis or better since 2010. And in 2011, when he won it beating Nadal in quite convincing fashion. But he's not really my pick, though.
French Open champ Rafa Nadal needs to prove himself now once again on grass court following his dominance on clay. The Spaniard is priced at a little over 3-1 at this point. Will this price move much?
It could, but it's hard to say right now. I think it will change, especially if we see him play a grass court event in the lead up to Wimbledon. Nadal was supposed to compete in Halle this week, but he begged off because doctors advised him to rest up after a grueling clay court swing. So it remains to be seen how well he performs and if he does compete in any of the warm-up events. That said, I don't think his odds will change a whole lot, even if he does deposit a solid grass court warm-up result, because he's fallen to world #5 in the rankings, which means he'll likely be seeded 5th for Wimbledon. There aren't enough points up for grabs, I think, during the grass court swing for his ranking to improve in time. And what that in turn means, as far as winning Wimbledon, he'd have to in theory go through. He'd have to do it the hard way and go through at least 2 or 3 of the top 4 players, assuming they all get to the later stages. So I think that's why his odds are so high, and why they won't really maybe move as much right now.
Okay, would you be tempted to go for those odds right now?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, when you look at Nadal's form coming into this season, since his comeback started, he's the player to beat, in my opinion, in many ways. I mean, granted, we haven't seen him play on grass yet, but he's won pretty much everything he's competed in, except for the Monte Carlo Masters and the first tournament that he competed in at the start of the year. So yeah, absolutely, a champion like him and somebody that's gotten used to winning so much. Winning becomes a habit in many ways, and so in that case, I definitely would back him at those odds.
Okay. Roger Federer may have been written off by the media, but the odds makers are certainly giving the future Hall of Famer much respect with his 5-1 prize. Will Fed make a deep run once again, do you think?
Well, in the context of history, having won 7 Wimbledon titles and standing on the verge of rivaling Nadal's feat at the French Open to win an 8th Wimby, I can't say that he's been given much respect, but at the same time, I mean, he used to lead the market previously whenever you looked at Wimbledon. He used to be one of the top favorites, but now he trails behind his counterparts. But in the context of this season, however, given that he's yet to win a title, then yeah, I think the odds makers are definitely giving him respect by not completely writing him off. And I think that if he does if he puts in a good account this week in Halle, that would serve him well, and you could see his stock improve. So for those inclined to back Federer on that, I mean, that's a great price. And I think at the end of the day, to answer your question about whether Federer will make a great run, you can never not count Federer in the equation at Wimbledon, and he is the defending champion going into Wimbledon this year.
So is this another bet you would be tempted to make this early on?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely like Federer's chances. I mean, grass, he's not for nothing was he known, and still is known as the king of grass. 7 Wimbledon titles speak for themselves, I think, quite loudly.
Certainly does. Okay, before we draw the show to a close, are there any other players you've got your eye on at this point?
Well, purely based on form, I like Ferrer, but it's plus 6,600, at least that's what he was listed at Bet365. He's a long shot, and correctly so. because he's only ever reached the quarterfinals at Wimbledon. And that was actually as recently as last year when he lost to Murray in 4 sets. He did give Murray a good run for his money at the time and really lost that match only by a handful of points. I think there were 3 tiebreakers in that match. So, but if he builds on the form that he's enjoying right now, who's to say he can't make a run for it at Wimbledon? Of course, it's still, like I said, a long shot. Other outside bets, well, I guess Andy Murray isn't really an outside bet considering he's a second favorite in the market. So he's a tempting play, obviously. He was the finalist last year and he did win the Olympics. So I do like Andy Murray's chances. And I think he improved his chances by skipping the French Open in order to really prepare and focus on Wimbledon. And a real outside play would be, I guess, Thomas Berdych. He was a finalist a few years ago, and at plus 5,000, I mean, he's a long shot, but he would be a pick I would consider in the outside market.
Okay, Nila, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Natalie.